Why do we love stories about heroes who sacrifice themselves for the greater good? Is there something imprinted in our human hearts to want to rise above our circumstances, to transcend obstacles, and to find meaning in giving ourselves so that other people may live better lives? Superhero stories seem to revolve around these questions, whether it's Uncle Ben telling Peter Parker that with great power comes great responsibility, or the sacrifice that Batman makes at the end of The Dark Knight to take the blame for Harvey Dent's crimes, so that Harvey's aspirational image continues to give hope to the people of Gotham. I think finding our purpose in sacrifice rings true as a universal story element. In the Marvel films, Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, the idea of sacrifice is explored among several characters. Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, is faced with a decision to sacrifice his girlfriend Gamora's life when Thanos captures them. If Gamora dies, Thanos won't get information about the location of the Soul Stone. Later, Gamora chooses to sacrifice her own life in front of Thanos. When it becomes clear he'll swap her life for the Soul Stone, we also see that Thanos prevents Gamora from taking her own life to further his plans. Vision contemplates giving up his own life in order to eliminate the Mind Stone from Thanos' grasp. Natasha, aka Black Widow, and Clint, aka Hawkeye, are both faced with the choice of giving up their lives in exchange for the Soul Stone during Endgame. And then there's Thanos, who chooses to sacrifice half of the universe's population in a mad scheme to bring balance to all of the universe. He sees this as his destiny, and that only he has the moral willpower to accomplish this task. If we find purpose in making a sacrificial choice, we have to believe that at a fundamental level, our choices lead to consequences. That hints at the possibility of an ordered universe, at least within a story. Choice A leads to consequence B, that then sets up further choices down the line. This reveals that characters are interconnected through their relationships. They impact each other's lives, which reflects our own experience. Sacrifice can hinge on a choice that the hero makes, and it can be costly. In making a sacrificial choice, the hero decides to protect, to defend, to seek the best for those under his care. Perhaps we are hardwired to empathize with that choice in our daily lives. Parents sacrifice for their children. Children grow up to become adults who then sacrificially care for their parents and elders. Often the choice for a hero is either to be selfish and attend to one's interests, or to be selfless and to seek the greater good for others. If making a sacrifice requires giving of one's life, then we see that as the ultimate sacrifice. We gave up our lives, the potential for a lived experience, and all that we can ask for in this earthly realm so that others may live on. It's Tony Stark as Iron Man who has a very developed character arc in Infinity War and Endgame, revolving around finding purpose and sacrifice. Since the first Iron Man film, we know Tony started as a self-absorbed industrialist who gradually becomes more selfless through the course of several films. In Infinity War and Endgame, his moral fiber is pushed to the farthest limit when he fails to prevent Thanos from snapping half of the universe away into oblivion. Tony regroups and makes it back to Earth in Endgame, but after a 5-year time jump, he has a lot to lose. He's a father with a young daughter, and he and Pepper are trying to move on with a new life together. In the final battle in Endgame, Tony chooses to sacrifice his own life and the future he had hoped to pursue when he seizes the Infinity Stones and snaps Thanos and his forces into defeat. If a story involves a protagonist pursuing a goal, and then there are consistent antagonistic forces or obstacles getting in the way of that pursuit, we see that the protagonist has to frequently dig deeper in order to overcome those obstacles. This requires a strong understanding of the inner life of a character, and it helps us to ask multiple questions on what are the character's values, moral limits, and weaknesses. A protagonist might have a goal that he wants, let's call it goal A, at the story's beginning, but over the course of the journey, the protagonist realizes that it's actually another goal, we'll call it goal B, and this is what he truly needed. The thing that he needs might align with a desire to find one's true purpose. I wonder if Tony Stark is the man who had everything and believed that he had just wanted to raise a family as his station in life. But maybe that what he truly needed was to live out his purpose fully as a superhero and to sacrifice whatever was necessary, including his own life in the darkest hours of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. His moral fiber and the choices he has made through several films led him to this climax in Endgame, where he realized he has what it takes to make the biggest sacrifice of all, with the highest stakes at play. So Tony can willingly choose to give up his life because he has built up the moral strength, the self-awareness, and the sober responsibility that allow for that choice to be feasible. In fact, in order for a sacrificial choice to feel satisfying, it might require that having at least two choices that seem equally or approximately desirable. For Tony at the beginning of Endgame, it makes sense that he doesn't want to fight Thanos again. He wants to live a quiet life with his family and move on. That's a reasonable choice that we can also identify with. At the same time, when Tony gives up his life and snaps Thanos out of existence, that's also a reasonable choice because of how events have unfolded at the film's climax. Thanos will never stop being a threat, and Tony realizes he has to take action that will also mean his own death. As everyday people, maybe we don't face the same heightened circumstances as Tony Stark, but I think there's a meaningful aspect to realizing how sacrifice reveals and strengthens our sense of purpose in our lives. After all, one of the biggest questions we ask in our lifetimes is, why am I here? Could it be that the purpose we seek to give meaning to our lives includes some degree of sacrifice?